Good evening and welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission Study Session Meeting. It is presently 6:39 p.m. on Monday, December 9th, 2024. We thank you for your patience as we finished our dinner. I'd first like to thank the commissioners for their service. On our agenda for study session, item A1, discuss regular agenda items, takes us to item C1. Consider approval of the November 11th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners, any errors, typos, issues with our minutes? Good. Okay. We will then have a public hearing, and I'm saying that out loud so everyone will keep me honest. We will, items D1, conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a zoning amendment for multifamily development on approximately 10.59 acres located at 1990 Whittington Place within PD 88 and take appropriate action. We'll be presenting.
Yes, I'll be presenting this one. Any questions, commissioners? This is a rezoning request within PD 88 for multifamily development.
Questions?
Yeah. What's the current state of the building as far as occupancy is concerned?
The applicant is here and will be able to answer that question during the regular session.
Any questions for staff?
Yes, I have a question. And we always come to parking on these things, but I've never understood the rationale, because if you look at the general zoning for the city of Farmers Branch, the requirement for parking in apartments and multi-housings is 2.5 parking spaces per unit. And I've just wondered why something magic was expected to happen in this PD to where only half of the parking requirement is required. I mean, we've seen this problem in other areas of Mercer Crossing where the residences become parking overflow for the apartments because there's woefully inadequate parking for the apartment residents on their facility. And it looks to me like we're replicating the problem here because there's no increase in parking requirement to get it back up to the 2.5 standard. And I would just like to know why they decided it would be such a low parking requirement. And yes, it's 1.25, they're coming up at 1.7, but still well below the city standard of 2.5.
That's a great question. So there's a couple factors to consider. You're correct that the standard zoning ordinance requirement for multifamily is 2.25. That zoning district is tailored around what we might consider older garden style development for multifamily, and that's why when you see these new proposals, often they're requesting a planned development district because it allows for a more urban style, high density development like we see with new apartment complexes. You also look at PD 88, which was created in 2006, and the vision for the west side at that time was very different from what has developed today. And so at the time it was created, that 1.125 minimum parking requirement, which you're correct is very low in comparison to the CZO and to other projects in the city. That was envisioned for a very dense urban commercial employment center type of use. Over time, you've seen single family development come in on the west side in significant numbers, and so the concerns about overflow into single family residences, into neighborhoods, definitely becomes more of an issue than what was originally envisioned. I will say the minimum here again is that 1.125, so that would result in a need for 531 parking spaces based on their development. They are proposing 807, which is closer to a ratio of about 1.7 per unit, which is in line with other recent developments. So a little bit of context there is helpful, but you're correct, it is lower than what the CZO requires. Just to add one more thing, That ratio in the CZO is also likely considering larger apartment sizes, including 2 and 3 bedroom, whereas with this development, it's exclusively 1 and 2 bedroom, which may have a lower parking demand. But the applicant may be able to speak in addition to what they've seen with other projects.
Thank you. Other questions for staff in our study session? Go ahead.
Just kind of an observation that you're right, it's getting to really high density. I mean, there's already 843 units completed, phases 1 and 2. There's already an approved 1,466 units for phases 3 through 7, which brings it up to 2,300 units. By way of context, the entirety of the single-family homes and townhomes in Mercer West is about 950 homes and residences today. So this is already 2.5 times bigger in this little tiny space, and they want to add 472 additional units, making it almost 2,800 units in a relative handful of acres, which is a lot of additional traffic funneling through those few entry points into Mercer Crossing. And I'm concerned about traffic, and I'm concerned about congestion, and I'm concerned about infrastructure being able to support that many people.
Other comments or questions?
I would agree with virtually everything he said. My concern is the traffic, especially with this kind of density. In addition to that, over the years, we've had an increase in car burglaries and that sort of thing out in that area. And I have had a policeman or two comment to me that they have issues out on that west side in their patrols because of the car burglaries. And it just seems to me that we have reached a point, just in my opinion, where we may want to look at some kind of a moratorium on apartments out there, because at one time, I believe, we had planned for many more single-family type dwellings. Townhomes are lots, and I don't know. I fear this may become in the next 10 or 15 years because of access and limits in traffic. Because people move into this area because safety, security, location, and I have the appearance that we're just making it more and more dense. Could be a problem 15 years down the road, unless that problem is addressed by us and our council. And I think all we're doing here tonight is just raising the concern. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I've been here 35 years, and growth is good. Planned growth is better, and I just think it's something we ought to be aware of when we start approving these things. And I'm assuming everybody has been out there and knows exactly where this property is and what's on it now. So, all right, that's all I have.
Great, thank you. And I think I had heard, and Sarah, you might want to speak to this if you have it. I think there was outreach on this for our police chief in response to looking at some of those density concerns.
That's correct. So we involved our police department, our fire department, community services, public works in this review. And so everybody's taken a look at it. You know, some of the things you mentioned are absolutely correct. Both our police and fire department have stated that when you increase density like this, they anticipate an increase in EMS calls, in police reports. Those are things that we've planned for, and both police and fire feel that the infrastructure we have in place at this time can absorb additional units. However, as these actually come online and we evaluate call volumes, we evaluate police reports, the need for additional personnel or equipment or, resources can correlate with that and likely will. And so, they've both commented, taken a look, feel like we can absorb additional units, but are concerned about increase on service level. And then we do have representatives from community services and code enforcement here tonight, as additional multifamily units also impact their teams.
Great, thank you, and thank you, staff, for being here for additional support. Additional questions during our study session on any of these concerns?
I assume the local schools have been appraised of all these additional, like 3,000 housing units coming online, and the additional load it would be on the schools and the school buses, all that stuff.
Yes, both Carrollton, Farmers Branch ISD, and Dallas ISD were notified of this request, and we have not received any response to date.
All right, any other comments? All right, that takes us then to item D2. We will conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a zoning amendment for mixed-use development on approximately 10.18 acres located at 1920 LBJ Freeway within PD 99 and take appropriate action.
Commissioners, any questions on this item?
It seems very similar to what came through before. Can you highlight the differences?
Sure, that's correct. There was a previous rezoning request for this property that was denied by City Council in May. There are a couple of key changes here. That request included an allowance to open an event center on the property, which has been removed. There were some parking concerns associated with that use. There was also a 6th pad site building proposed with that request that was going to have office and restaurant uses. That has been removed at this point. All that's being requested is the ability to have outdoor pickleball courts at that site, and then the 50-foot tall LED sign.
Okay. And then, so then the LED sign, I think that might be something people are a little concerned about. And one thing is you get the brightness, when something's very bright at night. And so I looked in the code, and it says that the illumination shall be decreased by a minimum of 50% from dusk to dawn. When I looked at the daytime, you typically might have 5,000 nits. That's just a unit of light. Nighttime might go down to 300, which is the 50% to me right now doesn't seem to be even close to what actually the difference needs to be. And there is a way of doing it, specifying it more about like 0.3 foot candles above ambient light. So however dark it is, it's just enough brighter to be a good sign. And then you can have automatic dimmers that will then dim it accordingly, which could, I think, potentially avoid the possibility of it just having a really super bright sign that is just not in control. So I don't know when is the appropriate time to make that suggestion, but I just wanted to bring it up.
Sure, that's a great suggestion, and that language could absolutely be included as part of the motion for this item. Currently, the CZO or the zoning code requirements that you mentioned would be applicable to the sign, so the 50% reduction at night, but additional standards beyond that could be imposed as part of the zoning change.
Okay.
And the applicant is here tonight to discuss as well.
Okay. Thank you.
With regard to the sign, what does the code say about hours of operation of that sign? For example, can you cut it off at midnight or?
So currently the code does not restrict hours of operation beyond requiring dimming from dusk till dawn, as Commissioner Miller mentioned, but hours of operation, again, could be imposed as part of this motion.
And I just was curious, one thing I know we had brought up at the last time, it is generally that this sign would only serve on-site premises, businesses. However, there was some question about potential language so that it could also function for the city purposes for communication, should that be, especially in an emergency, of course, but in other cases, perhaps as well, city communications just for the municipality.
Yes, that was discussed at the city council hearing in May for the previous request. That request was denied, so the language was not added, but the response from our city attorney was that it could be added. It's not part of this proposal, but it could be added by council's direction.
Great, thank you for that. Other questions, concerns? Everyone likes outdoor pickleball. All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to item D3. This one is actually postponed for our next meeting, so that will then take us back to item A2, discussion regarding the 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting dates. Thank you for our calendar.
Good evening, Commissioners. Lily Sutton, Planner. If y'all have any questions or any changes to the calendar, let me know.
It's the same as we've had, second and fourth Mondays except for holidays, right?
Pretty much,
And no
absolutely.
makeup days if it falls on a holiday?
Yeah. No surprises here.
Right, okay, thank you.
All right. With that, we'll move to item A3, discuss agenda items for future Planning and Zoning Commission consideration. Any items for future trainings or opportunities or things we'd like discussed? I will just say that I will likely have a training opportunity to add to that agenda, but I will send it to staff ahead of time so that we can have that as an opportunity.
That sounds great.
Okay. All right. And with that, that concludes our study session meeting. It is presently 6:56. We will reconvene right about 7 if y'all are able to make that happen. We'll try to do that. Thank you all. Welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, Monday, December 9th, 2024. It is presently 7 p.m. We will begin by thanking our commissioners for their service and then hear citizen comments. This agenda item provides an opportunity for citizens to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any matter that is not posted on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the commission should complete a citizen comments registration form and submit it to the chair prior to the start of the meeting. There is a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak, with a reasonable limitation on speakers on any one topic or item, with a maximum of 15 total minutes on the same topic item. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. The Planning and Zoning Commission is not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to the Director of Planning for further study or action, briefly state existing city policy, or provide a brief statement of factual information in response to the inquiry. I believe this evening, if I'm reading these correctly, I have one for the general citizen comments, and then I have 2 that are for our public hearing items. So the one that I believe, and you can correct me if you prefer to be on the agenda item for our public hearing, is Deborah Stromquist. If you would, as you approach, please come to the to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Deborah Stromquist, and I live at 2930 Meadow Green Drive in Farmers Branch, and I've lived here for almost 30 years. And I just recently found out that they're building a house. They tore down the house across the street from me, and they're putting another house in there, which is all fine and good, except that the house that they're building looks like a dentist's office. And I really, was hoping that this planning commission would take a look at that, because we have some beautiful neighborhoods. I mean, yes, they're older neighborhoods, but they have nice homes, and to put something, you look out your picture window and you're looking at a dentist's office. It's just, it's aesthetically doesn't fit in to the neighborhood. And I mean, I really wish that this is something they would put on their agenda to look at in the future, because new homes are nice and they're beautiful, but I think they should fit the style of the neighborhood. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments.
You bet.
I mean, do we want the staff to talk about there is a limited ability that the city can do, right, to dictate how a house looks? I think it would be good information to share at this point.
For Sarah Bergman, Deputy Director of Planning, the state has limited city's ability to control building materials. We do still have the ability to enforce architectural standards, and some of our plan development districts do include architectural standards. We do not have them in our base zoning district for standard residential districts, so that's something that could be considered in the future, but you're correct in that we cannot limit building materials or colors.
Great, thank you. Now we'll move to our regular agenda items. Item C1, consider approval of the November 11th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners?
I move that we approve the minutes as documented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor for approval? And that carries. Thank you all. Up next, we'll open a public hearing. We will conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a zoning amendment for a multifamily development on approximately 10.59 acres located at 1990 Whittington Place within PD 88 and take appropriate action. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Commissioners. Sarah Bergman, Deputy Director of Planning. So this property is located at the southwest corner of Whittington Place and Sinlac Drive. The site is currently developed with an office building and surface parking lot, and is zoned as part of the office sub-district within PD 88. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to mid-density residential sub-district still within PD 88 to allow for a new multifamily development with 472 units known as Brickyard Phase 8. On the right here, you can see a concept plan for all 7 existing phases of Brickyard and then the 8th proposed phase. So the buildings in orange are those that have been constructed and occupied. The buildings in blue are phases 3 through 7, which have been entitled through zoning but not constructed. And then the buildings in yellow are phase 8, which is proposed with this request. And on the left, you can see a little bit of an enlarged layout. 2 larger 4-story multifamily buildings are being proposed, as well as 6 3-story townhome style buildings along the property edges, so here and here. Over time within PD 88, several the adjacent phases have been rezoned from office district to mid-density residential, and this is sort of the last remaining piece of that original office zoning. Again, 472 units are proposed and 807 parking spaces. This is the conceptual landscape plan for the development. You can see that a number of green spaces and courtyards are proposed. The existing trail system along the western edge of the property would remain and be enhanced by additional landscaped areas. You've got some pickleball courts down here, and then a proposed deck feature over the lake. And then all of the existing streetscape, street trees, landscaping, and trail along Whittington Place would be retained with this development. These are the proposed building elevations, which are consistent with the other phases of Brickyard that have been approved. You can see the 4-story wrap-style multifamily buildings, as well as the 3-story townhome-style units. The comprehensive plan does recommend high-density residential development in this area, which can include townhomes and apartments with densities ranging from 12 to 65 units per acre, and so this proposal is consistent with that recommendation. On November 26th, we did mail notification letters to all property owners within 200 feet, and to date, we have not received any correspondence. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here as well and would like to give a separate presentation.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Questions first for staff? Okay, applicant, if you wouldn't mind, step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you so much. I'm Lucy Billingsley, 1722 Ruth Street, Dallas, Texas. A pleasure to be here. We are here to discuss a difficult situation, and I bring this with the mouse is how I move this? Yes. Thank you. You all obviously know the location, but let me, if I might, first speak to the Monotronics building. When we built this building, we built this and now it's moving on its own. We built this building with the, sorry,
You can use the arrows on the keyboard to go back and forth.
thank you, and to stop it?
Oh.
Well, we'll see if it goes on its own again. Okay. We built this building when we had office zoning all around us. This was an urban density zoning by the city of Farmers Branch. And there was no single family. Now, all of the rest of the development was also urban office density. Our neighbors, Gene Phillips' team, came in to rezone that area. We protested the first time, we protested the second time. The third time he came in, the city agreed to change the zoning to be single family. We protested because we knew that the damage to the office building's future would be there somehow. Of course, we didn't have an idea how. But now we have an office building out in a residential neighborhood. And at that time, we came and dealt with the other properties next to the office building, as you've heard, and went through some PD multifamily development zoning. This project today has a singleton in it, Monotronics, which is now also known as Brink Security. They have gone through bankruptcy twice. this year, they have given us notification of termination for June of this summer. Now they've asked for a 3-month extension. This is a 160,000 square foot building. They're now hunting for 25,000 square feet of office space in the market. They have had this building on the market for sublease for a couple of years, asking $14 triple net. That's much less than they're paying, and other office buildings we have up the street are in the $30 triple net range. So they've been offering it at a tremendous value. As we all know, the office market has changed radically, and the office buildings that are succeeding today, and I think, if I might say so, into the future, are those that are wrapped around with retail and amenities and features. So they're part of an urban mix. We obviously here are the little house on the prairie and don't have those amenities. When they went through bankruptcy, the first time we had to pay down over $2 million on the debt, and this summer we will have a $15 million loan amount to pay off. Just to give you the financial situation of the asset, we've made money over the years, but we've never gotten all of our equity out. So our net loss, when you get down to the bottom of this, including $1 million for demolition, will be about $12.5 million. That's tragic. But now, what do we do? This is life. How do we move forward? At that amount of money, that puts if you just put it all to the land and say we have nothing now left but land, we're at $30 a foot to the land. The rest of our land out here was about $2.50. So that obviously makes our financials difficult. So it is, though, we have it, but people do come in and buy multifamily land and develop at that. So we know we can make it financially work. We don't see other uses that are viable within this construct. So let me, if I might, push forward to address some of the discussion items that naturally come up when you talk about multifamily. Now it's moving on its own again. I'm going to try to track with this and then come back and touch all the topics. So as you can see, the yellow area, as discussed before, is what's proposed. We've put townhomes on the street so that you have townhomes looking at townhomes across, like looking at like, and the same on the internal. And then we have the wrap buildings, obviously next to the water. What we're going to do a little bit with bigger pictures than before is show you the architectural intent and design. We also have a big deck going out over to the lake to engage the lake. This is similar, we think, a little bit more sophisticated than some of what we've done at the Brickyard and the Crosby developments. And then these again are the townhomes looking across at each other. We've also added photographs to show you, these are properties we built. The one on the bottom is 4 stories, but we've built these homes, so it's sometimes easier and better just to see the photograph of the existing. So it's 2-story on the right and then 3-story on the left. And now I just wanted to take you quickly through the Brickyard images. And this is the first phase that we've built here in Farmers Branch. It's succeeded very well. And then the Crosby. And at the end of this, it's going to keep going into Billingsley Company developments unless we know how to stop it. And I think that's the end of the we had 2 courtyards at Crosby. Thank you. I just didn't need to waste all of your time on that. First, let me, if I might, mention that by and large, we are 75% 1-bedrooms on our projects. That's what this is. I think we've got 77% is what this is intended to be. The traffic, we've done a preliminary traffic study, and the traffic is less on multifamily than it is on office. We've seen that many times play out. But even with the scale of the 160,000 square foot building, that building today is parked at 10 per thousand because Monotronics had to have people, because it's security, they had to have everybody there at once. So you would have an intense traffic exchange moment. But the peak periods on office is much more than in multifamily. So the net in the end is the traffic generation's less. There's discussion about how many parking spaces for apartments. Historically, we've built 1.7. We finally, a couple of years ago, said, in our projects, our experience has been, that's just been a little bit too much. And so we've been ratcheting it back down into the 1.6, just around there, saving a little bit just because, it's expense, concrete. And so we're very comfortable with the 1.7 number and have not had parking problems as a result of that. I thought it'd be good also just to mention these projects will be all air-conditioned properties. So all the hallways, the buildings, just like the Crosby, are air-conditioned. With the cost of construction today, sadly, it's incredibly expensive. So our anticipation would be, this would be a few years out, but that we'd be at least in the $2.50 foot range. And if your average size is 750, 800 square feet, that's about $2,000 a month. So in Dallas, the rental income is about 28% of the rental cost is 28% of someone's income. So that would place the average salary or joint salary for whoever the occupants are is about $85,000. So that just expresses a little bit about the nature of the community. I feel like I have, well, the other thing is we always want to be amenity rich. When we jump into our projects, we start by designing the public realm. The real opportunity here is the trail wrapping along. We want to get that trail around the entire lake to be a great experience. And then we've reached out to say, this lake has a name, it's Landon Lake. I've learned that just recently. And we've reached out to see, can we go ahead and put a deck over it, have an amenity feature in that nature. Obviously you saw tossing in a couple of pickleball courts. Whatever the amenities are that people want to use. So the public realm is hugely important to us, and anything else that we can do with the city to have that lake come alive, geyser jets or anything of that nature that's appropriate, we look forward to doing so. What questions might I be able to answer for you?
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you guys. You've helped Farmers Branch in that part of the world over there be a great success over the last 7 or 8 or 9 years. And I know I was involved with some of that years ago. Y'all done a great job.
Well, thank you.
Is there anything like this at Cypress Waters, something similar? Townhome, multifamily,
Absolutely.
close to that lake?
I can switch this slideshow back on and get you right there.
But, I mean, so that some of us maybe if we want to drive out there and look, it's one thing to see this
You can easily
picture.
drive out there and see it. In Cypress Waters, in any place, you don't want to see garages. And so the office garages, we hide behind townhomes. So you'll drive down our streets and see a lot of townhomes to hide the office garages, and then, all the streets themselves. We've got 2 kinds of neighborhoods there. We've got one which is wrap projects, just like you're seeing here, with the townhomes hiding the garages. And then we've got, by the elementary school, garden projects, strictly garden.
Thank you. I think the success we've had over the years goes to one of my concerns, which is about density traffic, getting in and out of that area over there. There's only, the way that one residential is laid out, twists and turns and cul-de-sacs, and I know you've probably driven it, there's only about 3 ways to get in and out of that property. And again, I'm gonna reflect on the density. I'm not against apartments per se. I just thought around that lake would be the perfect place for townhomes, patios overlooking the lakes, you know, selling those kinds of townhomes. Because when this project out there was initially planned, one of our goals was to, you know, start homes out there in the $250,000 range to $400,000. They are way past that now, due to inflation and cost and lots of different things. And to my way of thinking, this lake is a gem sitting out there. And I know you guys know how to utilize that. Why can't you make more money building townhomes or some kind of single-family development as opposed to a bigger percentage of apartments?
That's real easy to answer. The cost to succeed in developing single-family per square foot starts out probably at $5. We've gotten some numbers I've heard up to $9, and we're at $35. So the price per the square foot of the land would make homes unaffordable. And the reason we can justify 35 is we're spreading it over the 400. And if you're spreading it over 30, you're, whatever the number was, you know, I don't know what the number was. It's just the economics are not doable.
Do you folks keep and manage these apartments yourself, or do you build them and sell them?
We have kept and managed 70% of what we have built. We have actually sold Brickyard and Crosby, so we do not manage those any longer. And I think that our model going forward would probably be similar on this 70% ratio. The reason we sell is to have the cash to be able to put the infrastructure in, because that's a we get no return on that. That's
all I have, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
In the overhead satellite image, this development would kind of cut through the existing parking lot, right? What would be your intention with that piece that's kind of left over? Would you be demolishing that at the same time?
I'm going to put this image up so you can see it. Now I'm going to slide to the next image. Part of that parking lot, since this was 10 per thousand, we already zoned to be multifamily, because at some point we knew we could either, if Monotronic State had needed it, we could build a garage and put this land back, or if they left, no one else needs 10 per thousand parking. So the blue up there, you can now sort of see that part of the parking lot is not in this discussion today because it's already zoned.
Right, so you won't be doing the blue yet. If this goes through, would you go ahead and tear the rest of the parking lot out that it won't be used?
Yes,
Okay.
when we would take the building down.
Yeah.
But we'd leave all the landscaping, on Whittingham.
Okay, thank you.
That's mature.
Is there a construction timeline for phases 3 through 7? And then this, if approved, is there an ideal construction timeline for phase 8?
We do not have specific construction times. The first question is, the quick answer is no. And the little bit longer answer is that we are building 4 projects at a time around the Metroplex. And when the other apartment developers jumped into Mercer, we stepped out to be able to have this market stabilize. And so our intent would be to step back in and then come every 3 to 4 years and do the next one.
Thank you. Other questions? Yep.
you have some nice pictures of the aesthetics of the units, but there was one picture that you had of the Crosby that actually shows an aspect of that building that is an eyesore. It's been there for 4.5 years since the place went up, and there's a giant, faded, ugly, 8-foot tall banner that says "Now Leasing." There you can see it right there at the far left of that. Do you expect those kinds of temporary, promotional, hideous signs to be on your new buildings? And can you do anything about that?
We are, two parts to the answer. We're absolutely subject to what the city tells us. And so if the city says we can't keep it up, we don't. We're not managing Crosby any longer, so I apologize. I have no influence over that. But it is very helpful when you're starting leasing on a new project to do that. Later on in life, we have not.
I get that, but it's been there for 4.5 years.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying exactly. And, you know, anyway, we're happy to have an agreement with the city to be able to do something like that during lease up and no longer. No questions about that. Especially when it's faded and ugly.
And so is it, as I understand what you're saying, is that the current buildings that are there, the current tenant has tried to basically give them away, and they just can't, nobody will come in. So as an office building, it's just dead. Like, I mean, it's just, that's not, and so what, for you, what makes the most sense is what's kind of going on around it. Just, it's, I mean, I don't think you would choose to tear down a building that you built not that long ago, but the economics have changed such that it's the only way to make it work.
That's right. I think it's tragic. And I didn't say, and I apologize that I forgot, we spent several months on saying, how do we convert this office building? Let's at least do that. And because you hear that, office to residential. It does not work on a 3-story building. There's so much work that has to be done. It would cost us $9 million to get it prepared to be able to be multifamily instead of $1 million to take down. I mean, and I just think that morally, for me, the whole thing's a tragedy. I mean, environmentally, it's a tragedy.
Thank you. Other questions for our applicant?
Of the 472, I think I got that number, homes there, how many are in the townhome stretch and how many are in the, call it high-rise, even though it's not, it's what, 4 stories?
Checking the exact numbers.
$54 townhome? 54 townhome.
Any other questions for our applicant before we move into the public hearing phase? No? All right, well, this is a public hearing and we do have folks signed up to speak, so thank you. I will remind you of your 3 minutes and courteous and cordial, and with that, we will hear from Pat Edmonston.
Pat Edmiston, 14215 Tanglewood Drive in Farmers Branch. I don't live out there, but if I did, I would be very concerned about the density, and I have now decided density is added to my 4-letter word dictionary. But that being said, what kind of response are you getting from the people that are single-family homeowners out there? If I lived out there in one of those houses, I would certainly be concerned about the density of this project. And I would hope that this would be postponed when you're making your final decision until you get more input from those people that live out there. Thank you.
Thank you. And just confirming with staff, we did submit those letters, as you said, or notices, and I don't believe we received any comments through that process. Is that correct?
Correct. So 39 letters were mailed to all property owners within 200 feet, as well as the school districts. To date, no response.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we will hear from Rick Johnson.
Ladies, gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight and allowing me to speak. I'm going to tell you the
Would you,
real...
sorry.
Oh, my name
apologies.
is
Yes,
Rick Johnson, 2930 Harley Drive, Farmers Branch, Texas.
Thank you so much.
Lifetime resident. I'm going to tell you the other tragic story. You go into business, you make decisions, and they don't all work out. Why wouldn't you take a section of these other apartments you want to build and build part of another building onto that so they can stay there, they can lease it out? It seems like the only solution is, hey, let us build more apartments, let us make more money when we've already saturated. From it was either 2018 to 2023, Farmers Branch was 30th on the list that 5 years for the most apartments built in any city in the United States. How big are we? That's ridiculous. You're selling our souls, which none of us want apartments anymore. We've had our fill. They all end up turning bad, and I'm going to tell you now, they can say whatever they want. The state of Texas, per one-bedroom apartment, will allow 3 people to live in it, and Vitruvian's filling that now. There are so many apartments around. I don't want to be a city in an apartment complex courtyard. We're supposed to be a city in a park. You're selling our souls, our futures, anything we may leave to our kids and stuff. As human beings, we want to make a place better than what we got it, right? Now, the ones that have been here forever, you can't get them out with a blasting cap. You can't get rid of the Villa Creeks, the Cook Creeks, the Londoners, and all that other stuff. And to do that, you got to let them build twice as many that's already there. Well, what happens when those go bad in another 30 years? Are we going to have to let them build twice or 3 times as much again? The problem is this is a losing proposition. We want to be the hometown neighborhood that we've always been. If you bought an $800,000 house, would you want to be stuck in the middle of a bunch of apartments? No. And you know what? We've all had our houses for a very long time here. And everybody's planning on and change so they can put apartments everywhere. And you also got to take into now the fact that at some point, there are going to be a lot of people that are no longer going to be living in this country. What is that going to do to the housing stock, the apartment stock, and everything else? And as soon as apartments start going down and one blinks, they all blink. And you want to know what? Then the prices come down, everything changes, and it's not a place any of us want to be. So if you feel like this is the best decision for our city, then us as citizens, we don't want it. 38 letters or something you sent out and nobody called back. Well, those are all apartments around there. What do you expect? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, any other discussion we need to have before I'll remind you, we did have a public hearing, so we'll.
So I guess I could move that we close the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote to close the public hearing. All in favor? Yes, thank you. All right, so that carries. So with that, we do have a number of actions before us, or if there's any additional need for discussion, we can entertain that as well. I can remind you of the actions available. We have 4 available. We can move to recommend approval of ordinance 3902 as presented. Recommend approval of ordinance 3902 with modifications. We can move to table the issue for further study or take no action, or we can move to recommend denial of ordinance 3902. Commissioners, any?
I move to recommend denial of the proposal.
Thank you. Move in a second. Any further discussion on that?
I'm going to restate basically what I mentioned earlier. My concern here is the success we've had out there has created traffic issues with the other apartments. And I know because I've talked to people out there where they have one-bedroom apartments, but sometimes 2 or 3 people with 2 or 3 cars move into that one-bedroom apartment, and that's created a problem on the apartments closer to 635. They're successful out there. We have an access problem, and I know the police and fire department, they'll always say, yeah, we'll okay it, but what that means is we're going to need more people. We're going to need, another medical unit for out there. And I think it's a great project, except I would like to see more townhomes that could be built out there with fewer apartments, so that we don't have as many transient residents. And I'm defining transient resident as people that live in an apartment, they'll live here for 2 or 3 years and they'll be gone. People that own their homes or townhomes tend to stay longer, and I think that would add to what one of the residents mentioned about, let's keep this a city in the park. But I would say I'm not totally against the concept. I'd just like to see a little bit more work on it. And that's why I would vote against this in its current state.
I will just comment in terms of my perspective of this project to that. I don't see that necessarily individuals in these apartments are as transient as you might estimate. In fact, yesterday I was visiting one of our residents who lives in the Boardwalk development, so a nearby development, not in this precise area, but has actually lived in Farmers Branch longer than myself. So I think not all renters are transient, and many renters and folks are contributing to our city in very meaningful ways. So I think it does a disservice to consider them a different class of citizen, or that they are more of a detriment to our city than an asset. That's just my opinion and my observation. And I'll say also speaking as a renter myself here in the city. So I think that that's one piece. I would say I don't see the density here as a bad word. To my mind, this is an elegant development, as you stated as well, very nicely put together. And I see that truly it's mid-density. We're not even talking about really a high density here. This is a mid-density development, appropriate for the location and quite honestly for the demand in our region and from our residents. We see a lot of folks who would love to live in Farmers Branch. So those are just my thoughts, just to share as I'm observing. But I'm interested in any further discussion, and then if there is none, we can certainly, we've got a vote, a movement and a second, so we can take a vote on that if needed. Any further discussion? Okay, so with that, we will take action on, there's a movement to recommend denial of ordinance 3902. So all those that would like to vote to recommend denial, so an approval of that. So just making sure my language is clear. We'll have a vote on that. All right. Those who are against recommending denial, we'll hear a vote there. Any, I guess there's no abstentions then. Okay, so it seems that that movement did not carry. Would we hear a different action on the item?
I'll move to approve the item as presented.
Okay, so we have a move to recommend approval of ordinance number 3902 as presented.
And I just that when you look at how this fits into everything that's going around it, it's just sort of the piece that doesn't make sense. You have everything the way it's zoned, and you have this one little piece that is office, and we know that office is dead. So I just can't imagine what else could go in here that would be any better.
Well, there's townhomes currently under construction 1/10 of a mile to the west of there. That would be a much preferred solution.
So we do have a movement for action.
I will second the motion.
Second that motion. Any further discussion on the item? Should we hear that? Okay. With that, we will then have a vote around the move to recommend approval of ordinance 3902 as presented. All those in favor? All those against? And I believe that carries. And this will go to City Council on January 7th. Thank you. All right. Up next, item D2, conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a zoning amendment for mixed-use development on approximately 10.18 acres located at 1920 LBJ Freeway within PD 99 and take appropriate action. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Commissioners. Again, Sarah Bergman, Deputy Director of Planning. So this property is located south of LBJ Freeway and east of Luna Road and is better known as the Mercer Boardwalk development. Phase 1 of this development is complete. We have three retail and restaurant buildings that have been constructed on the site. And tonight the applicant is proposing to modify some plans for the remainder of the property, specifically to construct a pickleball complex with outdoor courts and then a restaurant and bar building. In addition, the applicant is proposing a 50-foot tall freestanding sign at the property entrance. And here is a conceptual layout. Again, you can see the three existing buildings on the right and then the proposed pickleball area on the left. All of the parking and site landscaping was installed with phase 1, so no changes are proposed there. This is an elevation view of the proposed freestanding signage. So you can see it would be located right at the entrance to the development along LBJ Freeway. The total sign height proposed is about 50 feet. It would be a double-faced LED sign with about 435 square feet of area on both sides. And again, this is to increase visibility for the businesses and restaurants located on the Mercer Boardwalk property, and any advertising on the sign would be limited to those businesses. The existing and proposed development at Mercer Boardwalk is consistent with the comprehensive plan recommendation, and all property owners within 200 feet were notified of this request. We have received one letter of support, and that is from the property owner immediately east of this site. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Great. Any questions for staff?
I don't have questions, but I guess I could restate what I said earlier about let's see when the appropriate time, and just would recommend that the ordinance be changed from what it has, it says now, decreased by a minimum of 50% at night. Change that to read something relative to ambient lighting, so that it changes throughout the day and into the evening. So it's the same relative lighting, and employ an automatic dimming system, so that it just happens. I just can see that a super bright sign out there, if it were inappropriately bright, let's say, it could become an issue. And I think this would be a way to just prevent that from ever happening. So I don't know exactly. I know we can recommend, and I can put those stipulations, but I just wanted to kind of put those out there again. The applicant can respond to it.
Absolutely.
Great. Anything else for staff? Oops, sorry.
What's what's the current height limitation on signs under our current ordinance?
Sure, so, the existing site plan for this development has an approved freestanding sign. It's this on the left, and it's 36 feet tall. The sign code allows signs up to 40 feet in height, and they are proposing 50 feet, so it would exceed both of those.
I really don't have a problem with the height, because to me, on that particular piece of property, they may need 100-foot sign because of the access, and it's actually difficult to get to. So I think if I had a business there, in order to help these people out, I think it would be a good thing for us to help them as much as we can. But I agree with what you're saying about limitation on the lighting, but is there a way that you could just turn it off from 1 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock? In other words, does it have to be on all night? I mean, people aren't gonna be playing pickleball all night, I don't think. Or the restaurants are gonna close at 2 if they're serving alcohol. I mean, I'm trying to think of the apartments that we approved right next door.
Christopher Zilke, representing Centurion American. Yes, absolutely. This is a watch fire sign. It's a state of the art. It'll all be controlled. It'll have all the dimmers. We'll definitely turn it off at night. We're very excited about the apartments, hopefully, that are coming to the other side. We don't want to keep people up at night, especially when there's no cars on the highway anyway. We want to be great neighbors. We'll do everything we can to make sure it turns off at an appropriate time and dims appropriately, and if we need to put some language, we're comfortable with that.
How late do you think those people will utilize the pickleball courts?
The pickleball courts, they intend to stay open fairly late, to have not till 2 in the morning, but we'll be lit at night, probably till 10 or so. The restaurant, same, 10, 11 o'clock.
See, that may be like living next to a baseball park.
As he said, they'll dim, as the sun sets, so it's not glaringly bright at night. They do have dimmers built into them so that it comes down, and they're not very bright late at night.
That would be the only thing I like the way you mentioned about dimming it or turning them off or adjusting the lights, but I don't have a problem with 50 feet.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I thought you were talking about the pickleball lights.
Well, and I am.
And their impact
I'm
on,
talking about the pickleball lights too.
and the impact of the pickleball lights on the apartments directly across the
Sure,
lake.
right now, in this application, it is just to allow pickleball to be played. There will have to be a separate site submission for the applicant, the actual user who will have the pickleball court. We have actually 2 parties interested in building something here. They don't want to sign anything till it's allowed by right in the zoning. So certainly that can be a concern that can be addressed when the end user for the pickleball court brings that in.
I think the last time this came up, there was some discussion about allowing the city
Yes.
to advertise other events. Is that still the plan? I believe there was language in here about it being only used
There was language added by the attorney to the motion that was denied, so it didn't follow in this one, but we are certainly open to that.
Any other questions for the applicant? So just a recap, what I'm hearing is a dimming, which you said already had, but I think the specification around the lumens, or I think it's nits, or the specifics of that could be helpful, and I think that's based off some other ordinances that are, these similar signs around our region. So I'm sure those will be within what will service your needs. So I think that's the language that I'm hearing. And then I'm hearing a potential for suggesting inclusion of the already city attorney drafted language on city usage of the sign. Any other comments that have arisen on this? And we will look forward to that special use permit for our pickleball friends, of
Thank
which
you.
there are many. All right.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Second.
All right, any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, we'll have a vote to close the public hearing. All those in favor? Thank you. And now that we have closed the public hearing, thank you for that. We will hear action on the item.
Well, I move to recommend approval of ordinance number 3901 with the stipulation that the LED sign includes auto dimming and that the lumens be appropriate. And I don't know what those numbers are. And then also to include, make some of the access to city events as appropriate.
Yep, I think that our city attorney can work on drafting the ordinance from that as it goes forward, that those are our recommendations for modification. Is
That's
that correct?
Yes.
All right,
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll second that.
all right. Any further discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of recommending approval with modifications of ordinance 3901? All in favor? And that carries. And this too will be at our January 7th City Council meeting. And with that, since item D3 is postponed, we will adjourn at 7:52 p.m. Thank you all.